Number 5, the approval of the contract for I guess my concern is that our current state's attorney has illegally hired an attorney Flynn in the past because of, I guess, weaknesses in contract language, reading them, and those kinds of things. So I'm a little concerned that we're passing these things today as opposed to waiting to December when we've got a new state attorney who might have more experience in reading and advising you all on contracts. I'd also be curious if you all have read both of those contracts in full and seen them. Has the full board seen them?
I have. I've read the...
Has the full board read and seen them?
It's been given to them.
Has the full board read the contracts? I mean, you got,
I don't remember getting it, Mr. Chairman.
You know, you're right. Well, the Vandenberg contract we got. Yeah, the FOP, actually, no, none of us have seen that. I've seen it. Gina's going to present it later today.
so how does the board vote on a contract that they have not had an opportunity to review?
That's a good question.
I mean, I'm just curious. How do you vote? How do you all sit there and vote on something that you have not yet had an opportunity to review?
We've had a committee that's been appointed for this. Gary Patterson, have you looked at the contract you have?
I've got the contract and the arbitration. I sent comments back to all 4 members of that committee.
Yeah.
How many is on that committee?
Arbitration, four people.
Board committee representing the total board and a vote.
That's the way it's been for a long time.
That doesn't make it right. That whole answer.
Right or wrong?
That's right or wrong. That's an answer that as constituents, y'all speak up. We're tired of hearing that that's the way it's always been done. It's not acceptable, Mr. Cannon. It's not acceptable.
Is this the kind of behavior that got you thrown out of Lillis?
Excuse me? That's the definition of character because I have never been thrown out of Wilmot. Ever.
So bringing up something that is a question is bad behavior to get you kicked out. We're not questioning her behavior right here. We're questioning your behavior right here.
Well, I'm questioning who's advising.
And she just asked the question, how are we going to...
And I just question, do you want us to follow early or no? We'll think about that. So anyway, Martha, you've made your...
No, I would like you to recant your statement, Bruce, because I have never, ever been kicked out of Wilmot. And I don't know where that came from, where you heard it, but it is not an accurate statement. And if I need to get Jim and Tom Binks in here to tell you that, I will. But for you to bring that up in this setting is over the top.
It's been all over town. Murderers. What a bunch of scumbags.
You guys are absolutely abhorrent to bring something like that up with number one not asking me if it's true. And it's not. I have never, not once, been kicked out of Wilmot. And when the rumors started, I had a pretty good idea where they came from and started. You may hear from my attorney on that. Back to the other comment. Go ahead.
That's a point, order. Gina's going to be going through this, right?
That's what's on the agenda.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at everything here on the contract,
We
and
should
then
see.
we make a decision?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
My point as a constituent, you're taking advice from an attorney that is on her way out, that hasn't stepped up over the past how many years, read contract, advise on contract, because I was speaking. Thank you. Has illegally hired an attorney to do that contract review for whatever reason. She wasn't comfortable doing it, she wasn't experienced to do it, whatever it was, and now all of a sudden on her way out the door and your way out the door, we're supposed to trust Gina Vonderheide to give you guys good advice?
Yeah.
As constituents, we don't.
Okay, can I speak?
As constituents, we don't.
She is a legal attorney. She has passed the bar. Okay? You can laugh all you want.
Yeah, we will.
But she has passed the bar. She is our legal counsel. I'm here to look at her presentation. Okay? And if there's a problem with the presentation, there will be questions, and then we'll vote on it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, where is our legal counsel today?
I don't see her right now.
She's actually in a jury trial and does not anticipate coming to this meeting.
She's going to tell all of you. Being here
about voting on something that you all haven't considered. Too many times I've observed in this meeting, you agree to do things as they have always been done. And then it's pointed out that it's illegal for you to do that as a board, and you continue to do things illegally. So I am concerned that you would vote as a board on something you haven't totally looked into. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for speaking out of turn, Mr. Chairman. I should have asked for permission first. I apologize.
You're okay. Thanks.
I do have a problem with authorizing not for any reason other than for the last year and a half she has failed to provide legal counsel to this board, and you had constantly had to write contracts to other legal entities to provide that advice in her stead, and yet we still pay her payroll. So that's my problem, Gina, authorizing. All of a sudden I hear everybody going to her defense, well, she's our attorney. So I'm not going to listen to that. That's hogwash. Gina is not a good lawyer. I wouldn't hire her to take my way out of the ticket in New York when I can provide evidence I've never been in. She would lose the case. I also find a problem with putting public body comments before the entire agenda has been executed, because right now we don't know what we don't know. We're going to come up with a lot of questions as we go through this as constituents out there. And then you're having us have to be mind readers to read everybody's minds to come up with those questions right now before the meeting occurs. I find that wholly reprehensible and evasive, to say the least. And it's the reason that a great deal of you are not going to be sitting in those positions kind of the same time. I came through and I shook everybody's hand that I could find when I first came in. I mean, it's here at this table. I do apologize. I do know I'm from District 11, not District 10. I have no idea what happened in my brain in that moment. But I had to run for District 11 in very, very good reception. I got a very good candidate running against me, Donnie Fisher. I'm not going to take him away from Donnie's a great man. If he wins, great, that's fine. But I'll still be here. A lot. And he is a constituent. Well, as I said, I'll be back next meeting and bring me after as long as I'm able.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask that, since it was brought up, and I was going to bring it up later. When we did move public body comments to the top, the board didn't agree with that. We didn't vote on that. Nobody's, to my knowledge, ever did anything. Who decided to do that?
I said, several board members asked me, and I suggested it. She sent out a memo to everybody, and LaVon disagreed with it. Nobody else did.
Somebody voted on this. The whole board, it's affecting the board, it's affecting the constituents. And you just decided yourself, again, to do something for your board members.
I think the county chairman has that
Yeah,
prerogative.
so
He wants to do
let's
something.
not argue about it, guys.
Well, I'm
It's there,
just
it's
saying,
there.
you're doing things that we never even knew about.
That's fine.
Everyone is to vote on it.
Let's go on with public body comment, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm John Kraft. I went to the airport board meeting last month, and it was a pretty good meeting. They answered FOIA requests on time with the proper documentation. I know at least one of you guys here are on the airport board. I would suggest, since I did get an approved application for property or real estate tax exemption for the north half of the runway, that tells me that the airport and the county know the proper procedure for maintaining property tax exemptions. So if they haven't done it yet, and you're one of the people on the airport board, please go to the next meeting and ask if they have submitted applications for real estate tax exemption for the other two pieces of property owned by the airport, which would include the south half of the runway and all the T hangars in the main building and a fuel point. Hopefully they'll submit those if they haven't already, because I know the IRS doesn't have any, the county doesn't have any current or in the past because they didn't respond with the FOIA request for copies of them. The IRS said, or the Department of Revenue said they didn't have it. So please submit it for the other two, just like you did with the third one, which is north half the runway. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can anyone tell me who authorizes spending $1,000 for running ads seeking applications for an EMA zoning position? I don't recall any discussion or any such expense being approved by the board.
I authorized it.
You authorized it?
Yes, I signed it.
Has the board given you authorization to spend money on your own?
As chairman of the board, I have been authorized to carry out the business of the county between meetings. We have an open position that we need to fill, and the board has discretionary funds for that, and yes, I feel like I was authorized to do so.
Okay, so you feel like you've been authorized to do so. I would welcome any documentation in the statute that gives you such power to spend money without board approval. Because that's what's happened. There wasn't even a discussion to put in an application for those positions. I didn't hear that last meeting. The point is, money's being spent on your own free will. I understand health department, no offense. This isn't personal. I understand health department board gave the director a bonus. The only way such a bonus is legal is if it's based on an established contract or agreement that contains a provision for a bonus based on a measurable criteria. That criteria has to be in writing in advance. You can't just at the end of a year or the end of COVID or whatever say, well, we're going to give you a bonus. That's not how the law works. It has to be in the contract. It has to be something the person works towards achieving. It's an established criteria in order to do that type of bonus structure in government pay. Is it safe to assume, Chairman, that you have no intention of paying back your improper claims? We're down to a month and a half before you're gone.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume that, and I think it's safe to assume that I was advised by the previous county clerk, Kathy Lance, to turn those in 12 years ago. Nobody advised me not to until you came along, and I quit doing it.
It's interesting, the prior chairman didn't have those same claims that you did.
Well, if you go back and you look at my claims from previous chairman, you'll see that when I attended all those meetings, I claimed my fees.
I appreciate your response. Thank you. Your agenda speaks of approving the contract for the audit. If the contract's approved, who's the established point of contact? The auditor spoke with me and telling you it would be a board decision as to who to communicate with. One thing is for sure, the sheriff, the staff, and the state's attorney have no business being a point of contact considering they already have documented malfeasance of payroll in their offices. So I would hope a point of contact is being established. Two that should be on there, the clerk's keeper of records and the treasurer is one involved in finances and payroll. If those two aren't on it, there's a real problem in our opinion. As far as the FOP contract, I appreciate that you're going to get or possibly get a response from your state attorney or legal counsel on that matter. But I think that the point was missed through a lot of the emotion in the prior speaker's comments and the way he back and forth on it. You have a state's attorney that has recused herself from all FOP stuff based on lack of knowledge and a perceived conflict. Why in the world would you be taking advice from a person who told you they don't have the experience in that field, and that's why you have another attorney representing you? That doesn't make any sense. I would urge that you table that matter until after December when you have legal counsel that can advise you on FOP contracts. It's not going to hurt to go another day or another month without it. It's been some time since the exposure to the illegal operation of a private business working out of the county highway department. Yet not one word of discussion by the board on the matter. I would hope December 1st not only brings new people, but a willingness to enforce the law. Is anyone doing anything about the missing guns and the financials from those illegal sales that do not add up? state's attorney has colluded with the very entity that is suing you and provided an affidavit. And in that affidavit, she says that she hired Ed Flynn. She appointed him. Wait till that deposition transcript comes out. If you take any advice from that attorney, you're absolutely stark raving crazy. She's supposed to be defending the taxpayers of this county, the county board, and its officers. And instead, she signs an affidavit brought to her, not one she prepared, one that was prepared by opposing counsel to help his case. Unfortunately, it didn't help him. Not a bit. In fact, it's probably going to be a whole lot worse for him before it's over with. For the few board members who've yet to take their own A training, just get up and resign, please. I'm sure there's a few of you still have it. Mr. Switz, have you taken yours yet?
What?
Your OMA training? You have? I need a certificate, copy of that certificate. I'll forward it just for that today. Thank you. Other than that, the only thing I can say is December 1st can't come fast enough.
Mr. Allen, I just, first of all, thank you for being here. I did take my Coleman training, and one of the things that it said in there is to make every one of you feel welcome. I don't get around to shake everybody's hands, but thank you for taking an interest in your county. That's the greatest part that's come from them guys being here. A lot of horse crap on some of the other stuff, and one of them is, Mr. Simpson there called Edgar County, at least we believe him. I didn't call, but he did. You've been complaining to us that we don't make our farm lease person pay the taxes on our county farm. Edgar County says they have a farm. They say they don't pay the taxes. And you're welcome to respond. Yeah. Go ahead. I want to know, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you never call me and tell me what you're going to say here. So I thought it was turned about fair play.
Absolutely, and that's a fair question. And this is part of the importance of a community ensuring that the government is doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And John can speak to this as well, because over the years, when we first exposed them to Edgar County, their solution, did you ask them for a copy of their contract?
No.
Okay. Their solution was, we're going to incorporate what they're paying includes the property tax in that agreement.
So we can do that too.
I'm not saying you can do that. I would get good legal counsel, because our argument is all you did is circumvent the process. They kept the number the same, and it's being rented. I mean, it's not being done the way it should, because technically, and this is back to state's attorneys, you have two types of state's attorneys: those who truly will follow the law and hold everyone accountable. And the Attorney General said counties can't lease farmland. That's the starting point. Our state's attorney has ignored things for years, and that's unfortunate. There's, other than us bringing lawsuits to do something, it doesn't solve the problem. Their solution, and I believe, John, correct me if I'm wrong, the Coles County Airport did the same thing. They incorporated the property tax obligation in the contract. So when that farmer pays, say it's $200 an acre, that payment, a portion of it goes to pay property tax. So the county technically is making less money off the farm ground, but the property tax is being paid through the contract management. And I think if you contact Edgar County, the last contract we looked at several years ago, that's what they had converted to, and that's what Coles County converted to.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
No problem.
Okay. Can our committee do that whenever they're negotiating the next? Because right now, I assume you're kind of in the middle of a contract with the farm ground. So in the next one, is it possible that they could do exactly what, I hate to say, Edgar County did? But
Well, if you remember my first presentation in January, I said one of the biggest dangers is to look to another county and say, well, they're doing it, so let's do it too.
yeah, you set the bar.
And, well, actually, we didn't set the bar. Edgar County is doing something and we still disagree with it. And it's because the Attorney General's opinion that points to case law specifically says you can't rent public property for private business without statutory authority. So they shouldn't be renting farm ground at all.
Okay.
Now, in your airport provision, and this is one of the other equations to this, your airport has farm ground, and in the airport statute, they can fix things legislatively that don't make sense, because trust me, there's things that we agree that don't make sense in the law. We had farmland because you had the poor homes, or the poor farms. Well, what are we supposed to do with that? It only makes sense if we want to make a revenue off of it, that we're violating the 1970 Constitution. Legislation didn't catch up with where we're at today versus where we were before that constitutional change. My suggestion to legislatures, and unfortunately we've never been able to get anywhere with it, is counties that have farm grounds should be able to legislatively put in the law, they can rent it out, but they have to put it out for bid, which that we put ours out for bid. Coles County's put out theirs out for bid after we brought that to their attention. That puts it into a competitive playing field. Airport property is a little different, and ours is distinctively airport farm ground, where yours is not. And that's part of the other difference in that. But there's fixes to it. It needs a good dialogue, and I greatly appreciate you asking that, because that gets more information out on the table.
I agree.
Because when we ask another entity, you may get an answer, but there's more things you got to ask. Get a copy of the contract. How are they doing it? How did they fix it? We don't agree with how they fixed it, but with the state's attorney that won't follow the law as it is, there's nothing we can do. Do we want to go and sue over the issue? It doesn't rise to the level of us spending money to go sue over it. The point is, as a collective, we can fix things if we put our heads together and talk about these things.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That is one of the most productive dialogues I've heard today.
I agree.
Tell my mother when you see her.
I would do that.
We don't always have good dialogue.
Hey, guys.
And Marshall Line taxpayer, Terry, thank you for the most welcome we have felt, because we have been
And
denigrated.
it's from the heart. I do mean that.
Well,
Yeah.
what
Thank you, guys.
my comment is, I appreciate your saying it. I, for one, would better appreciate if you did things legally, and I think my fellow taxpayers would agree. We're not here because we want to be ugly or anything. Guys, we need to do it legally. Just because we've always done it this way is not right. Thank you.
Chairman, just real quick to close on that and the importance of this dialogue. One of the other things you folks have the power to do, talk to your legislature. Talk and explain to them, both your state reps and your senators, hey, here's the problem. Can you help us fix this? Because when it's coming from a legislative body, here's the problem. Everybody that's got farm ground, every county in the state that has them is doing the same thing. Okay, there becomes a common law. They do it the same way for so many years. It's like, hey, we just need to legislatively fix it. And coming from you folks, that can happen. Who's your Senate district here? Because I know some of you don't like Brad.
Chapin.
Okay, talk with Chapin and ask him, hey, what can we do legislatively to fix this? I like it, Brad, but I say that because there's some people that maybe snorts under their back. And yes, we can tell. But the point is, when you have that dialogue and you put the discussion on the table without all the emotion and all the concern, there is fixes that can be put out there. I can't tell you how many things over the last 10 years, at least a couple, darn near, but I would say between 12 and 20 pieces of legislation that have passed almost unanimously to fix problems that we've come across. And this is one of them. Unfortunately, we just haven't been able to get legislative push through because nobody's calling for it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question referring to the poor farm, would that be something we would do for the airport?
You have the power to control your land. You can do with it what you want. I have found no reason why you couldn't transfer that to the airport.
Thank you again.
Okay, has anybody out in the audience got anything else to say? Yes.
Mr. President, my name is Dr. Tom, and I'm a voter here in the county, a resident. I have some questions about this ordeal going on with illegal gun sales. September 3rd, 2004, I was illegally shot 3 inches below the heart in a violent crime. I put the man behind bars just to have him fight his way to
That is public body comment. First item on the agenda, and everybody questions my ability to sign it, is the approval of the contract with John Vandenberg with 2020. I did read the contract. I saw no problem in the contract. If the contract doesn't have a clear point of contact, I think it should be the budget committee of the board, which is made up of fees and salaries, and the finance committee, which handles this stuff and brings everything to the board. Erica and Jessica attend those meetings, and I don't have any problem with them seeing it as well. You know, do you put this out in the newspaper? No, not right away. Might end up there. I've approved the contract, I've signed it. John's been paid a retainer fee. And I don't believe he started the audit, have you, John? Correct. John is waiting. This audit's been delayed for 4 months because we didn't pick the right auditor. And it continues to be delayed. We need to, if we're going to do it, we need to move on. So I need a motion to approve the contract with John Vandenberg. Got a motion by Barb. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Bob? Simpson? Okay. Any discussion on this item of the board? Bobby?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to add points of contacts as our county clerk and county treasurer.
Second.
You already did. You already said they were going to get on it.
The motion was not.
The motion did not include that. The motion would include that this would be shared, is what he's saying, with the budget committee and the county clerk and the county treasurer. Is that correct? Bobby, is that correct?
Just to amend the motion, which is to approve the contract with Vandenberg 2020, perform the payroll audit, and my motion amends it to make Jessica and Erica the contact points.
The only contact points?
Only contact points. They keep the records.
No.
They keep the records. We'll vote. They keep the records and the finances. So where better to get the file information? I mean, the budget committee, do they have file information? Can they be voided? Can they be? No. These two have the information needed to do the work he needs to do. That is filed with the county.
But that's not what, that doesn't have, that doesn't, okay, they have the information that he's going to need. But that's different than being the principal point of contact for sharing the information. That information needs to be shared with this board. This board is on the line.
Okay, so
they're not on the
the
line.
information all goes to the clerk and is disseminated to the board.
Well, I think the board, the clerk, and the treasurer should see it.
My concern is when they request information for the audit, it needs to come from the two elected officials of the county that are responsible for paying bills and finances.
I agree.
When we get information back, it can be shared with the budget committee. It can be shared with the whole board.
It's the information back that I think we're talking about here, not the information going to Vandenberg. Yeah, these two are going to be key players.
They're the only two that should supply any of that information as far as.
They're going to be key players.
They are the official
Yes.
record keepers.
That's on the front. What we're talking about is the back end contact.
We get all kinds of information.
The back end's not going to change anything.
Then what are we worried about here?
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a point and address that as well. Because Erica always feeds us the information that goes to the board, the total board. Then you got a committee, you got to get the committee together, you got to get the information together, and it's going to cause you more delay because you can't get all of the committee together. And then another thing that I look at it too is we got a Democrat and we got a Republican watching over everything, not just all Republican or all
John needs to make that report to the budget committee and these two. The final report has to come to the budget committee. Doesn't do you any good if you go ahead and authorize a report and then we say we don't want the
What's the
information.
budget committee got to do with it anyway?
Well, they've been held responsible. They're the ones that are being criticized. The budget committee and the board have been criticized for not doing
Sure,
a good
I'm
job.
not being involved touching it.
I was trying to just
We're just trying to install it, that's all you're doing.
No, we want to get it going, want everything,
We
we want
want
Justin,
it going
that's
all
it.
the
Hold on, period. Why you need so many hands in it? Did I hide something?
John,
No, we want it out in the open, right there. You got two people that deal here every day.
We got pages out.
order here, hold on, John.
I don't particularly care who the point of contact is. Your points are all very valid. But a suggestion I would have is that as the two people that are most involved in the activities that we're looking at, you should probably have somebody more than them. I don't care who it is, but it would make sense that you have somebody that's not involved in the activity that also is part of the communication share. I don't care if it's your budget committee, I don't care if somebody volunteer, I don't care who it is, but my recommendation would be that somebody, they absolutely should be involved, but that should be enhanced by being somebody above and beyond just those two. Nothing against them, it's just to protect the integrity of the process.
You want the sheriff to do it?
Here's the thing that bothers me, we keep having these side agreements that are coming up that have never been taken before the board on the contract. I think we need people that have the official documentation and the
What side
official
agreements?
records.
What side agreements are you talking about?
I've been told of side agreements 2 or 3 different times.
Well, tell us about it. Let's hear it.
I don't have all that.
I don't have them
We
either.
don't hear it.
When you got the county public court thing, was a side agreement by everybody, 2 or 3 to say we're going to move the comments to the front. What else you want?
I know there was one that the sheriff talked about that they just recently wrote up and had signed that they said it was made several years ago that had never been presented before the board. I don't have documentation on it.
Okay, but, so the board hasn't seen it. Did the board make that side agreement?
No.
Okay, so what's the
No,
problem?
you're right.
But if it affects how we're paying or how things are going down, it, yeah, here's the side agreement here. 4 years ago, the sheriff's office felt we needed to command that each shift, therefore, 4 sergeants are appointed, 2 were current sergeants. Yeah. You catch it. My glasses aren't working well.
For 4 years ago, Sheriff's Office felt it needed command of each shift, therefore. 4 sergeants were appointed to their corrections, sergeants working alternate shifts, 2 deputy sergeants, of which one is a senior sergeant and the other patrol sergeant. Knowing this is a 24/7 job which is needed so that someone could be available where the sheriff and the undersheriff are not available. Although this is not the FOP agreement, it is agreed to by the current union members. For their services at regular pay, some of their duties include the following: on-call, scheduling, fill-in shifts, court transports. Next paragraph. Also, they would be available to continue in the detention center as needed to help the citizens concerned. Since they need to work above and beyond their normal hours, need the additional responsibility, therefore comprehensive above receiving 5 comp days or days off each year. We believe this stated in 2015, but was stopped in 2018. It is a department conclusion, was shared with the Law Enforcement Committee at a monthly meeting. Kay Carney signed it, Rich Hayden signed it, Bob Simpson signed it. That's the point.
And this was dated and signed on May the 8th, 2020. Now,
Well, that
I've heard of others.
That side agreement doesn't have anything to do with this contract with Hannibal. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether the board saw it. That
But it
has
gives
been
the pay
signed on
and
by the
benefits.
committee. That's signed on by the committee. Was it acted on by the board?
Committees don't have the authority.
I've never heard of it.
I
That very
remember-
side agreement was cited to
of the documentation of overpayment. That is why I have that copy.
In other
That's
words-
why it was put into writing in May, because it was a quote-unquote verbal agreement, and when it was used to justify some discrepancies in the payroll, that was brought up. So it has been used, and it was told that it was passed by the board, and it was used as a side agreement for possibly part of the overpayment that exists, and so it very much becomes, in my opinion, a part of this audit.
But that was in May. Was it acted on by this board?
I will tell you that the documentation that the state police were given
It's never.
was for 2019. So to put in writing that it finished in 18, that very verbal agreement that was agreed upon in 2015 was cited to justify some documented overpayment in 2019. So when it was drawn up and didn't even address what the state police investigator was looking at.
So, okay, but my point is that document really has never been seen by the board.
Neither has the one underneath it that was
So
signed by the
why
chair.
are you not trusting the board? The board has not seen the agreement. And you're calling us down.
Payments.
Well, that's okay. We don't trust the payments necessarily either. That's why we want this audit.
What's the next one you have?
Yeah, I mean, this is why we want this.
This is gonna come up in the audit, correct?
It should.
I don't know. I don't know how many other agreements are out there.
Well, it should. We don't know how many agreements are out there. That's why we're paying the audit.
But why doesn't the board know about these agreements? Why
Well,
were
that's
they
a
never
good
presented?
question, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's a really good question.
and we waited, what? How many months now trying to get an audit done?
Well, 4 right now, this has been delayed. I think we need to get this audit contract approved, get these guys on the road. I have no problem with Jessica and Erica being involved, but I believe you need board members as well.
Well, let's put a third one in there. Pick another member, put it in there. These are the two elected by the taxpayers to supervise our money and shit.
I'm willing to, and I think that person ought to be on the fees and salaries of the finance committee. And go ahead, man.
Gary Patterson, you've raised your hand a couple times. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you had some information pertinent to this discussion.
Well, I mean, my only comments were, I agree John needs to go to someone. This board basically has authorized the payment and the contract for an audit, so it makes no sense for the board not to have to be in the process of the audit, to be there to answer questions. It makes no sense to me for the board not to be involved, and I think it should be someone who has no ties with the sheriff's department, which wouldn't be me, but I think there should be 2 board members and these 2, and then John goes to those for guidance, and this board authorized the payments, we're trying to fix the problem, but for the board not to be even involved in the audit, I think is totally wrong.
I'm not saying they can't have some
And
input.
these site owners you're talking about, if the board was never aware of them, then obviously they're going to come up in the audit, and we should be aware of them.
I got a point there. If anybody's on this board, any of us, who are we going to go to get the information if we need payroll or other, we're going to go to them?
Well, that's
So
we're not arguing over that.
No,
We're not arguing over that.
I need other hands in the pie, just more area to leak out, and more areas to be.
It's not leaking out.
These 2 are going to look official, that's all I'm saying.
Before I call the vote, I just want to clarify this. My amended motion, okay, is to clarify who the points of contact are. That's who my suggestions are. That's it.
Okay.
So,
Points
now
of
I'm going to
contact.
call the vote and vote to say we're going to ensure that these 2 are points of contact, and then we can move back to the motion to approve the contract.
Are you saying they're the only points of contact?
That was my motion. Now, I can make an amendment to the amendment. And include the state attorney as of December 3rd.
No, I think there needs to be, somebody from this board needs to
agree with you on that. We need something before that. So, what I'm hearing is that, you know, we've still got a contract on with the budget committee. These two are definitely the points of contact. I mean, there's no question. If we don't have the budget committee, who would be our board contacts?
Who's on the finance committee?
Well, the finance committee is Gary Patterson, you're on the finance committee. And Lynn, you're on fees and salaries.
Gary.
Dave's on fees and salaries.
Gary, Larry, LeVon, and Terry is the finance committee.
What's your fees and salaries?
That was the one I was thinking, that was 3 on fees and salaries.
3 on fees and salaries, and 4 on the finance.
Let's call this for what it is.
Okay, so, let's get this right. The contract has got the state's attorney in there as a contact, and I think she still needs to be in there. Maybe we don't value.
Not the
December 3rd is just around the corner. We're going to have a new state's attorney, and I'm hearing nothing until December 3rd. But he's not going to have a report back to you until December 3rd.
Well, our state's attorney has been noted, just.
The one now is, but by the time that she's out, Nicole Cronky's going to be in. She's going to be the one that's ruling on this anyway.
So you're stating to make it what the state's attorney, they won't be coming on?
Well, but you add the state's attorney, period, so it's covered. The new state's attorney's going to come by the time he's got something. So you include the state's attorney, so you got it covered. Because that's where it's going to belong, ultimately.
How long is this all supposed to take? It's going to depend on the access to the data and just, how thorough it is.
Say everything goes perfect.
If I had access to everything, I would like to think in 6 or 8 weeks, we ought to have something together.
So you're in,
Perfect is a difficult goal to attain on that, because there will be requests, there will be a process, there will be more requests, there will be more process.
More than likely, it'll definitely be after December 1st.
I can confidently tell you it will be after December 1st.
Thank you.
Without a doubt.
Mr. Chairman, I call the question.
okay, if we vote on this contract, we have to name, we still need to get you 2 board members. And so we'll get that included. But you call the question, those in favor? Okay, so Bob, what's your amendment?
The amended motion is to add points of contact as of right now. County clerk, county treasurer.
Only.
Now, I can make an amendment to the amendment.
Let's do all one. Not twice.
Your amendment hasn't been voted on yet, so
So, and that's the thing, but, so, all right, here it is. It's been seconded, so my motion on the table. So, in discussion, at that point, I'm going to make a motion to amend the amendment and include the state's attorney as well after December 3rd. So now we need to vote on that. So we have the state's attorney. Well, right. So what we're voting on is
way the board would have somebody there. I don't think it needs to be. That would be the 5.
Well, let's just do 4.9. Including the sheriff and after sheriff. Sheriff, state's attorney, treasurer, and clerk.
Well, the chairman, the new chairman, is on that finance committee, and that's it.
Get a lot of people.
Well, you know, here's another thing. Every time you call a committee together, every time you call a committee together, you're getting paid. We need to start bringing the budget down and quit worrying about it. You got 2 people, why you need 1 board member? Huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're overpaid. I will if you cut it the whole board. Yeah, cut the whole board out. And travel.
Okay, hang on, that's not relative. Okay, so, we have a motion on the table that includes 3 members, is that correct? 4. Okay, so you've got the chairman on there after, and this is after December 3rd. Who's he gonna use between now and then? So that's really all he needs. Okay, that's fine. We got the motion on the table. We call the question. Go ahead. Any other comment?
I just like to hear the motion. I'm not here at all.
My amendment for the amendment is to add points of contact as treasurer, clerk, state's attorney, and the board chair.
Oh, and the board.
We have board rep, we have 2 elected officials, and our legal counsel.
Okay.
So this vote supersedes all the other votes. So once we establish this vote, this is the final decision. We'll vote on this and then go straight to signing the contract.
Nice job. Nice job.
Good job, Bob.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay.
May I ask you just a really quick question for clarification for us sitting down here? I just want to ask a question. I don't want to make a statement.
Right now, we don't need.
Can I ask a question,
No.
please?
No.
Point of order, please. Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Point of order.
No.
Point of
Right
order.
now, we don't need this. Martha,
I just have a question. It's a simple
what's
question
your
for
question,
clarification.
Martha?
I just have a question. I'm not going to make a statement. It's like, just to be clear, when you guys are talking point of contact, so that we understand, are you talking the point of contact for providing Mr. Van Buren the information, or are you talking point of contact for his report when he gets it all done and complete? Just
All
asking.
the above.
Inclusive, all.
Any questions you have?
Front
Thank
and
you.
back.
Appreciate you letting me ask a question.
So these 4 members would have to be convened to turn information over, or however many members.
No, they won't
Is
have to be
that the point?
convened to turn information over. He can go to any one of them for information. He can go.
So the board members don't have access to that information?
No,
Only
he's
the elected
gonna,
officials.
go to the treasurer and the.
That information is public record.
Yeah,
It's payroll information. It's public record.
It's already public.
he's not gonna get it from me, no.
Okay, so in the upload of the information as public record, why do we have additional board members to be a part of that process? I don't
Because
understand.
there's a final report. There's 2 parts to this thing. There's all these people. If you don't want anybody involved, Brad, why do we even have a county board? I mean, you're accusing this county board to stop the county board's representation. Okay.
Candy Ditzler.
Yes.
Dennis Sturdivant.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Richard Hayden.
Yes.
Bob Jordan.
Yes.
Larry Lenz. Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Frank Mulholland.
Yes.
Bobby Orman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz. Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 18-1.
My next question is, John, when can you get started?
I'll put together a request for information that I'll try and submit to probably Jessica, maybe we can all submit that. You get the email addresses of everybody or Tom, everybody on those emails.
Okay, we just voted just on this, okay, now we gotta vote on.
Now we gotta vote on the
Okay.
approval.
All right, I want to make sure
Okay,
I'm
so
on
the
the
contract is amended, and do I have a motion for the new contract as amended? Barb, do I have a second?
Where are we at?
This is the actual contract. Contract's been amended, so they agree. Now we're going to do the second. So I have a first and a second by Barb and Levon. Any discussion? If none, let Jessica call the vote.
Earl Baker.
Yes.
Kenny Barr. Barbara Bennett. Levon Cheney.
Yes.
Candy Ditzler.
Yes.
Dennis Sturdivant.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Richard Hayden.
Yes.
Bob Jordan.
Yes.
Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Frank Mulholland.
Yes.
Bobby Orman. Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer. David Switz. Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 17-2 with you voting nay. 4 minutes Slifer.
Okay, so the motion carries. And John, we'll get you that information. Let's get this started as soon as possible. Item 6, Frank Mulholland, fees and salaries, Chairman. Approval to hire William Schmitz to replace our zoning and EMA position. Frank, everybody's been given a resume. The fees and salaries committee has interviewed William Schmitz. And Frank has asked Mr. Schmitz to be here today and meet the board. I know there's people that question whether we should hire somebody in the interim, but we have somebody here.
Okay, well, as Bruce just pointed out, the Fees and Salaries Committee was tasked with the problem of replacing Garrett Roper as Director of Emergency Management. As a retired newspaperman, my first
Mr.
thought...
Chairman, he's going to need to speak louder. I could barely hear him, and I don't know if anybody else can. And he's got my good ear on this side. Please speak up.
Okay, sure. As a newspaper man, I thought the first place to go was the newspaper. But then I realized what a lot of people told me, that nobody reads the newspaper anymore, which is a shame, by the way. But anyway, we had one person who actually applied for the job, and that's Mr. William Schmitz. And Bill, I would ask you to stand up so everybody knows who we're talking about here. Thank you. So we have offered him the position at a salary of $47,000 a year to replace Chair as Director of Emergency Management and as the zoning administrator. That salary of $47,000, if you remember, $20,000 of that is paid by the federal government. So actually, the county is responsible for $27,000. He's also indicated strongly that he does not want the benefits, so there's another $10,000 that's saved. The man, I believe, is eminently qualified. You looked at his resume. I contacted his professional references. They all pretty much had the same thing to say. To begin with, a lady named Kim Smith, who's the operations chief statewide command post, she was the warden at Taylorville Prison when Bill worked there. She had nothing but good things to say about Bill. She said he's, let me see here, he's attention to detail, good energy, excellent employee, no concerns to rehire if that was the case. Also talked to Wayne Prose, who was a lieutenant who worked with him, and said pretty much exactly the same thing. High energy, straight shooter, good family man, blah, blah, blah. So, I move that we hire William Schmitz to replace Jared Brooklyn as Director of Emergency Management and Zoning Administrator. And I might also point out, for those of you who think we should not hire anybody, there has been many emergencies that have occurred in this county. And if we don't have a Director of Emergency Management, I'd like to know who's going to go out and coordinate and organize and take charge of that. Any of these people who don't think we should hire one, would they be willing to go out on every emergency call and take charge of it? So, that's my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like the newspaper guy to read the ad that was in the newspaper, please, just for everybody to hear.
I don't even think I had that ad, Earl.
What kind of qualifications were in there?
I don't think I had that ad, Earl.
You know, good newspaper guy would, sir.
Pardon me?
Good newspaper guy would.
I'll second the motion.
But didn't it have education requirements in there, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't have that article.
What's your education, Steve, background? You got a bachelor's or
I do not.
bachelor's degree in any of that stuff?
I do not, sir. My education is life experience, military, law enforcement background.
Well, thank you for your service. And I think if you had the ad written where you didn't need education, you might have got more people, Mr. Paperman.
Well, next time I'm going to write an ad, I'll have you do it.
When I get a computer and get to say,
Okay, we have a first and a second. Gary, do you have comments?
I've got a couple of questions. Number one, Kenny, how many years have we battled to keep the job center here in our county? And we didn't even go to the job service and post it? Why?
Didn't think of it.
I spent $1,000 on the newspaper. We didn't even go to our own job service, which we've almost lost on different occasions. Kenny and I have battled for years to keep it here because we choose not to pay the dues for 1 year since I've been on it. That concerns me. The other question I have to ask, Frank, is who is Mike Holmes?
Who is Mike Holmes?
Yes.
I have no idea.
Did you get a call from a gentleman asking you about the job by the name of Mike Holmes, who is highly qualified and certified, has the training for this job, and was told that we're not going to do anything until after the new board is seated?
I had no contact with a gentleman named Mike Holmes, so I have no idea.
He's from Piatt County.
Oh, the guy from Piatt County, yeah.
Tell Mike Holmes.
He was great. He said he was going to send his resume to me. He waited about a week, and then he called and said, yeah, he's going to send that resume. And then we waited a couple of weeks, and then he called and said he was going to send that resume. And you know what the bottom line is? He never sent the damn resume.
But it's on the way.
It's on the way this time, huh?
He was told that it was not going to be, we weren't taking applications for the job until after the new board come on.
I don't know who told him that, but I sure
told
did.
him that.
Yeah, if you told him that, maybe.
I didn't tell, I got to talk to him.
I didn't either.
Gary, you're an information source that we don't know about. I mean, you come up with best rumors.
Yeah.
No, you come up with it.
I got some documentation here with me if you want some other people to talk about it.
Well, where is he?
I'll let that up to them.
Jessica, you got a call?
I talked to
And
him.
you recommended he call, he knew,
I told him to call Bruce or Frank.
when he was talked to by some people, he said, well, he could remember Frank, but he couldn't come out with the last name.
He did talk to me. Several times he talked to me. He also promised to send a resume with his background and his qualifications several times and never sent
Well, we
it.
only got one inquiry.
That's correct.
Well, no, there were more inquiries, but
Yeah. Well, I just told all Frank, only one inquiry. Only one person checked on it.
Only one person actually sent me a resume and talked to me about the job.
I think we're rushing it and filling the position until we get some more applicants. I'm nothing against this gentleman. He do a fine job, I'm sure, but I think we need to look at it. He's interested in two parts of the job, right? Who's going to do the other parts?
well, that was going to stay in the treasurer's office, the peacock.
And are we going to pay some extra money to those people for taking over some of the others?
If they get there will be no payment to a county employee, so all of the peacock money will now go into the treasurer's department.
But again, I think we could avoid some of this if we'd had a more open discussion on it. Decided how to advertise and how to approach getting names to the job.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question. Kenny can answer it better. This job service you're talking about, local?
Yeah, it's government agency.
And you go to them and they find people for jobs? Is that what it is?
That's exactly what
They
it
put
is.
up an advertisement, they advertise job openings for people to live.
Find jobs?
Yeah, it's for the public.
They have a lot of people through the office.
That's interesting. We should probably everything should go through. But they're local.
Yes,
Yeah.
They're local.
Well, we try to keep it because if we lose it, you've got a choice of going to Decatur or
All the
Effingham.
guys right down to the old Columbia are there.
Oh,
Down
okay.
down
Okay.
there.
If that's what they're doing, all right. Well, thanks for
Bob?
coming in town.
When they're talking,
So, we have a contract for hire.
they've got pretty girls there they're talking to. We don't want it.
Now you know why Kenny's on the red.
Well, I think we need to table this until next meeting. We need to drop a contract. We need to have something in writing to define what the job is, how it's compensated. And we need to approve that because we can't be just, I mean, we've done other things without contracts and things get inflated, deflated, however, misconstrued. Voting on this right now is, to me, very ill-fated and set up for disaster. We need to have a contract before we make the approval to hire somebody.
Was that a motion to table?
What we call it.
I'll motion to table right now.
I'll second that motion to agree.
I call it motion. Any cut.
Okay.
Jenny, you have a question? What is your question, Jenny?
Mr. Chairman and board, without talking to Frank beforehand and not knowing this gentleman here, I indeed made some calls over to a correctional facility at Taylorville, and I've got some comments. Some of them were, he's a straight shooter, he's thorough, direct, well qualified, his work ethic is above and beyond that as a regular worker. He's a self-starter. And like I said, that was before Frank had his dissertation and before I met this gentleman this morning. Now, talking about the second individual, and I don't know who that is either, but it would worry me that he called ahead and said, yeah, I'm going to send a resume. Yeah, I'm going to send a resume. He never did. Now, a big part of this job is going to be putting in for government grants. And I'm sure there's a limit on the time. I would hate to have a grant at hand and have this person fill it out and forget to send it in.
Yeah, that gentleman called 4 times and 4 times promised me faithfully he'd send a resume. Never.
I thought you wouldn't even remember. Now you remember it 4 times. Come on, Frank.
I remember it well
Is that correct?
Where's the list?
Our turn.
Yeah.
I would, if I may just present a urgent caution, and this is from a pure legal standpoint of potential liability. Your publication has a minimum requirement of a bachelor's degree. You've got a college that doesn't have a bachelor's degree. If you award that contract to him, you are opening yourself up for a lawsuit from other people that didn't have a bachelor's degree, that's why they didn't apply. And that's my only comment. Thank you.
So, I do agree
Didn't
with
require a
this.
bachelor.
I think we need to table this for another month, and then I think we ought to place this at the job center. Although, from what I understand from talking to, is Deb Seeley still there? Is she running the job center, Deb Seeley? Deb Seeley, who runs the job center? Deb, right? Yeah. From what I understand, that most of her clients are from down the courts. I don't think we're going to get the right person, but I think we'll get close.
Just a sec, please. Okay, sorry.
Okay. So we have a motion to table the first motion, a motion and a second. Do we have approval for the tabling?
Don't we vote on that motion?
We vote on the table. The motion to hire, I agree.
I call the question, that could be.
I'm motion.
But he moved
Before
the
you had
table.
made that motion.
Just prior to.
You make that motion.
Well, we can vote on it.
We had a motion and a second. Before he said that.
We can vote on it, but I would advise that we vote against hiring him for a month until we have a
Roll call.
proper. I think there was a bachelor's degree in that. I do. And I think that we could be criticized. So could be criticized if we hired him. I know. It sure is. Okay. So we have a motion to table the approval of this. Do I have any further question on the motion in the second? Yeah, we have to, tabling this till next month.
I thought if you called the question, you had to have a vote on it.
Well, we can,
He
but
called for a table before you called for the question.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
He's correct. There was a call for vote and a second. I heard this gentleman.
Right.
Bobby made his motion to table after further discussion.
But then the question is when he called the question on the first motion.
Correct.
And
By Robert's Rules of Order, you have to vote on the first one.
you can withdraw it.
Absolutely, you can withdraw it. That's not an offer.
The first made motion to withdraw the motion.
You can't get nothing out of all the help. I made the motion that nobody's knocked out, we ain't getting nothing out.
Okay, let's just vote on the motion as it was made, yea or nay, to hire Bill Schmitz.
Hire or not
Hire. Hire or not hire? No says no hire. Hire says yes. So the amended motion would have been no anyway. So let's vote on this. Jessica,
So we're voting on the hiring.
whether to hire him or not hire him.
Earl Baker,
No.
Kenny Barr,
Yes.
Barbara Bennett, Levon Cheney,
No.
Candy Disler,
No.
Dennis Sturdivich,
No.
Gary Gergety,
No.
Richard Hayden,
No.
Robert Jordan,
No.
Larry Lenz,
Yes.
Terry Metzger,
No.
Frank Mulholland,
Yes.
Bobby Orman, Gary Patterson,
No.
Robert Simpson,
No.
Jeff Slifer,
No.
David Switz,
No.
Don Tate,
No.
Lynn Williams.
No.
Motion fails 16-3.
So we'll put that off for another one. Item number 7, Gina Fonderheim, present the
Mr. Chairman, to
FOP.
clarify, we're gonna go through this John Service or whatever it's called.
We already did.
Okay, we're
Yeah,
gonna,
it's-
it's gonna make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not gonna spend another $1,000 on a newspaper article.
Not this month.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Item number 7, Gina Vonderheim is not here to present the FOP contract, so it will be tabled for a month. Item number 8.
I do have one comment on that. I guess I would like to see everybody on board with the FOP contract and the arbitrator ruling so they can study it over the next month. For sure.
Gary, you've got a copy of that. Could you give it to Jessica to circulate?
Well,
Arbitrator and
I actually just got it print from Gina. That's who I got mine from. I didn't get it on emails. I got the FOP on email from you, but the arbitrator decision I asked for from Gina's office, and I got it from the office. I don't have an email, I just got a copy. But I'm sure she can obtain it from them.
I will try to get it from.
I mean, that would be published, wouldn't it? Once it was ordered?
yeah.
So I'd say everybody just needs to have the arbitrator's ruling, and that way the numbers that's in the contract are in there. So you've got something to compare it to. Like 27 pages and cover letter from the judge and cover letter from the employee magistrate.
I agree. And so, would you say something to Gina, and Jessica will also?
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, I would request it. I requested it one day and got the next day, sure.
Okay, so item 7, the FOP contract is tabled. Everybody should get a copy of the contract and the mediator's agreement, or the arbitrator's agreement this month. Okay, item 8, request approval to refund the county liquor license for $600 for Casey's and the Weekla. Right after they paid for their liquor license, which is for next year, they were annexed into the village. They do not need a county liquor license, and immediately requested a revocation or a refund, which has been through our state's attorney, I believe. Is that correct? And it's been recommended to go ahead and refund the $600.
That is prorated, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Pardon?
Is that prorated then?
It was for the whole year, yeah.
Well,
It would have taken effect September 1, because their liquor license run on our fiscal year. So they would get their $600 back, because they never used their county liquor license.
Thank you, make a motion.
okay. Hayden has made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Steve makes a second. Any discussion? I think we've had it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Erica, review of expense and revenue.
On your general fund available cash report for September, the balance $2,686,512.89. The payroll liability there, revenues were $414,333.03. We did do our third disbursement for taxes in early September, so that's why revenues up a bit there. Expenses $390,001.60. Ending balance $2,708,517.31 with $544,823.39 restricted, leaving a cash balance of $163,693.92. Questions on that?
The big difference between this year and last year is our restricted funds are considerably lower. Your ending balance is a little higher, but our restricted funds, I see that really happened in December last year. Where did that extra 200,000 in?
That's when we pay our work comp and the insurance, which was what, Jessica, 100, and that was one lump sum last year.
I think we paid IMRF an additional 200.
That's not the
Oh,
restricted.
that's right, that's our
That's
liability.
the-
That's like
we paid one time.
180-some
Yeah,
thousand.
180,000 there. We've now paid just that one time a year.
Well, we're in better shape than we were last year. Good job.
Any other questions? All right, can I go on to number 9?
10, yes.
There's been some issues with payroll with the sheriff's department, and it was brought up again at the law enforcement committee meeting October 1st, and the language that is being used is overpayment by the treasurer for overtime not requested. And we had a conversation about it. I went to the law enforcement committee meeting in August and presented some information. I emailed out in your packets. Hopefully you all got it, some emails and what this is regarding. Because the bottom line is it's going to come down to the board to decide what your policy is going to be on pay. I put in those emails my conversation with a lady named Doris at the Illinois Department of Labor. She could not assure me that when we get a payroll audit, because it'll come, anyone in the county, any employee in the county, and any department files a complaint with the Department of Labor, the entire county is going to be under a payroll audit. It's not going to be just in whatever department that complaint comes from, because in view of the Department of Labor, we are one employer, we are one entity, and we will be looked at top to bottom. And so the issue with the payroll, we changed the payroll, as everyone knows, in May. We did timesheets. In the packet to you, I have some examples of timesheets, and I am paying whatever is on that timesheet. There's timesheets, the time is documented, time in, time out, and if that is 11 hours for that particular day, if there's not time put into the comp time, their sheets are pretty complicated compared to most. If they haven't said, no, I'm going to bank that 1 hour of comp time, then they get paid for it. If it's not in the overtime column and it's not in the comp time column, they're getting a paycheck for it. They have come up with a waiver that I sent out to all of you. Hopefully you looked at that waiver. When I was at the meeting in August for law enforcement, I requested some kind of legal opinion. If someone can tell me that this waiver is legally binding and it will keep the county, the taxpayers of this county, from receiving fees and fines because we don't pay every hour that an employee works, with interest, and then penalties and interest, I'm continuing to pay what is on that timesheet. Even though they're signing a waiver every week and saying they don't want paid for all the hours on their timesheets. The Department of Labor could not assure me that we would not have penalties, fees, fines, plus we have to go back and pay what is on the timesheet.
Why are they, Mr. Chairman, why are they putting down pay and not wanting pay? I don't understand that. Where am I at with it? I'm missing the boat. They're putting down time to pay, and then they're waiver and they don't want to be paid.
Right, and I believe it has to do with our deputies take, their cars home, they log in and out based on when they arrive from home. That part I can't answer. The thing that I want to make clear to the board, Doris told me if they got, she said, well, this is a unique situation. I said, well, I have another word other than unique, but we'll go with unique. And they've never had, she said, we've never had a call where we have to deal with an employee that doesn't want to pay. I mean, that's not what they do. But she did tell me if they got a complaint, they would come in, they would compile all the documentation,
hours or?
No, they're saying they don't want it.
Okay, they're just banking them like so they can take time off.
No, they're not even banking. That's what I'm saying. If it's not in the bank, like say you work 11 hours in a day, there's not, you're wanting 10 hours on this comp, there's not an hour in overtime, and there's not an hour in the comp time. So they're saying by this waiver, they don't want pay.
I would really like to make a comment, if everybody'd like to listen. If you don't mind, I'll take a mask off so you can all hear me. Basically what they're doing, this only has to do with the deputies only, not the people that are working at the jail. But a deputy, like she said, drives a car home. When they get in that car to head to work, they radio in, they're in the car. And that's the time they're putting on their timesheet as their start. And maybe they get in the car at 7:30, but their shift does not start till 8 o'clock. So they're driving that car, they're going to work like you and me, only they're in a county vehicle, and they have logged in saying, I'm in the car, so that if they get a call that's between where they left from and where they're coming to, that dispatcher has the ability to say, we need you to respond to this call. And they really haven't been given that shift to work, but they're in their car and they're going to work. So when they do their sheet at the end of the day, they're writing what time they got in the car, they're writing down what time they got out of the car. They know they were authorized to work a 10-hour shift, so they're saying they want to be paid for 10 hours. And if they're an hour, hour and a half in that car, other than the 10 hours, then they're being paid for 11 and a half hours, or maybe 15 minutes over, or whatever. But that's where it comes from, and I just want to, Jeff, is that correct or not correct what I'm saying?
I can explain a little bit of that, I suppose. We don't work in an office, so we come on duty in our car, and we go off in our cars. So when we go, we come on a few minutes early, so we can make sure that person that's coming off duty can go home on time. So what we do is we put it what time we come on, we try to get as close to the top of the hours as we can. There are times that we'll stay over our shift for a whole lot of different reasons. And basically, we aren't requesting to be paid for that time, but we want to make sure that the documentation is true and accurate that we were out there. So if we would put down that we would go home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was the end of your shift, and I was on until 5:20, then I'm going to make sure I put down 5:20. Now, I'm not going to charge for driving home from a call that I just got off of just before the time, just before my time off at 5. If I'm working that time and I have to stay on until 5:20, then I'm going to put on the time sheet that's 5:20, and then I take overtime for that 20 minutes. So if we come a little bit early to make sure the other person gets home, and then when we come on duty or go off duty at a later time, we don't necessarily request for that. There's a lot of different reasons for that. Some guys want to stay over and get their reports done for the end of their work week, and that might take until 5:30, and then they drive home. Some people have 20 or 19 miles or so to get home. They don't request to have that time.
Well, they should be paid for it.
They're not requesting to have that time paid for because it's not mandatory for them to stay there. It's just they want to get it done.
They should be paid.
We have, but they're not asking for it. They just want to, they take it upon themselves to do that. There's times when there's a call that comes in right around the same time frame that we would be getting off, and we wouldn't necessarily need it. But there's times when I had a situation the other day. We were searching for a guy in a house. There was 1 or 2 guys going. I didn't want to go off duty until I knew everything was fine. I knew I wasn't going to get paid for it, but I continued to go to make sure they were safe. I come home, I radio off duty at the time I come off. I didn't request that. Okay? I don't, and it wasn't mandatory for me to be there, but I was going to there to make sure that the safety of the officer was good. So, on top of all that, when we do that, anytime we request overtime, we fill out a department sheet that says we're requesting overtime for that month. Okay? So we put that on a separate sheet that's going to be approved by the sheriff. The times are all, if I ask for overtime, I'm going to put it on the weekly time record, and then I'm going to turn around and put it on a
that says I'm okay to get that. Okay, so anytime we want overtime for something that we've done, I'm gonna put, he's gonna have that to be able to approve. In doing the practice that we're doing now, that whole process of the sheriff being able to approve his overtime for that person has been gone because we're getting paid for our in and out times. So if we're getting paid for in and out times and the sheriff doesn't have to approve overtime, he can't control his budget because he's just being paid, we're being paid whatever's exactly on the weekly time. So he has to have the ability to be able to approve or not approve the overtime that we're doing. And some of those we're giving that time to make sure that the police run smoothly, we can get the calls, and we're not asking for that.
I got one more comment, Earl. When you all get the FOP contracts, just read it and you'll see that everybody has a salary that they work for and they have an overtime hour, and it says the sheriff has the ability to set the shifts, and you'll read the rights of the sheriff, you'll read how their salaries and their overtime is calculated on a per hour, but every person is on the schedule in there with their name, and read your contract. And
No, I'm not questioning their time. I know you guys are on call 24/7. If I need you at midnight, you're going, right?
Well, you have to work 8 hours a day.
So as soon as they get that car, they should be on the clock. As soon as they get home, they should be on the clock.
And
well, that's the sheriff's call.
You should be paying.
we are on that. And in the payroll policy, it says we're supposed to write down specific in and out time. So we have been writing down specific in and out time. We're not asking to be paid for those times. We're asking, when we are actually working, that's when we were requesting that, and that's where we would put on the weekly
So
time.
you're saying as soon as you get the car, I would say you're on duty. You're saying you're not on duty.
It's not so much as the on-duty part of it, because we will come off a few minutes early, but we're still getting paid for that. We're not asking to pay until the top of the hour when we come on. We're doing that as a courtesy to the rest of the deputies so that they can be ready to go home, we can converse before they go home, and we can be ready for what's coming on. Because there's things that are occurring that you wouldn't normally have in an office job. You couldn't just leave at 8 or come in at 8, leave at 4. We're going to come on a little early. We're going to be prepared for our shift when we do come on. When we stay over, there's an array of reasons why we're over. Okay? And if we don't want to be paid for that, we signed a sheet that says we're not asking for that compensation. However, we're going to keep the weekly time record true and accurate by putting the minutes that we came on and off duty. We can try to come on right at the top of the hours off there, but when we call that number in, or call our on and off times in, it varies because of what block of this guy is looking at.
Yeah, I understand that. I was police commissioner, health and safety in Braidwood, and we put them on, as soon as they hit their car, they're on duty. Because you might have to go this way. You live in Tower Hill area, you might have to wind up going to Siegel before you get here. Or you might have to go to Moweequo, or you be in Moweequo, and you've got, so, you guys are being paid.
We're just being paid for times that we're not requesting, and we don't want to be paid for that time.
That's nice of you, but, yeah.
Jerry, have you had this document that they've all signed? Have you had it checked out legally to know that it will stand up?
Well, the only one that's really been turned, I've checked it out, I guess, 2 places. It was sent to Gina. I don't think she ever made a determination that I'm aware of. I talked to our accountant, and if you look at the fact sheet 21, which she sent in her group, you'll see there's several different ways that you can account for it, and you guys read the sheet, you read your contract, and you make your own idea. But our accountant basically told me the same thing. There's different ways that you can count for hours.
Could that be legal put into the union contract?
I feel it's in the union contract, but you guys read it, see what you think. I think it's already in there, because it says the sheriff sets
We have a
the
sign letter that we already did that clarifies the act of how we do this.
No. My concern is in an audit situation, I don't see that.
There's another one, Chairman. Sign letter.
My concern with this board, and the reason I brought this part, Mr. King, I was just going to say, it appears to me the real problem is the way the reporting that you do.
that time that they're wavering should not even be on the timesheet.
If it's on the time sheet, which is a public, all I'm saying, I want the board fully aware that the Department of Labor basically told me if it's on that time sheet,
Yes.
they can't guarantee that we won't have to go back. Now, he is correct. They're doing a true and accurate. So do we want true and accurate? Do we not want true? This is the board's decision, because I want something in writing that says, I'm not going to look at taxpayers and answer because I didn't pay somebody that said they didn't want paid. Who's to say somebody doesn't get mad and say, the sheriff twisted my arm and made me sign that? It's just a very odd situation that you're on a clock. You know, if they're driving home and they're still in that car and there's a 3-car wreck in front of them, are they going to stop and they're going to assist? You know, there's all kinds of issues. My issue is I've requested something legally telling me that the taxpayers of the county are not going to be on the hook for back pay, penalties, and interest. And when I talked to Doris, she referred me to, and she kept saying, ma'am, they have to be true and accurate. I understand. It was part of what I said. It was part of what we based payroll on. So my other issue is that, you know, we have to do and we have to choose to do what is right to protect the taxpayers.
Well, and you want to make sure the deputies are compensated appropriately.
When we do the weekly time record, we sign it, the department signs it. When we do the overtime sheet, we submit it, it gets approved. When we sign this waiver, we sign it, the department head signs it. So, I mean, you know, in our office, they know what we're asking for, and they've already done the approval process there.
So you're
when we
could not assure me that this waiver would protect the taxpayers of the county. And then that's going to come back on me as the payroll department, because I am looking at the timesheet that says they worked this many hours. And I'm only paying this many.
So the timesheet should reflect
what they're being paid.
The actual hours they're being paid for and not the wavered hours. They shouldn't even be on
And
there.
I've not been accepting the waiver, and I've been putting emails. I've sent you those emails that I had to Rob. It was a discussion we had at the August Law Enforcement Committee meeting, which I said I would continue my practice in paying what is on a timesheet until I had a legal opinion and something in writing that clears me of any illegal activity of not paying an employee what they are due. But this has to be a board decision, and if the board says, don't pay that, accept the waiver, then it's going to be on you, not me. I'm a payroll department, and I'm paying what is on the timesheet. That's one reason we went to timesheets, was so that we would have true and accurate and public information documented where the pay and the time work equal the same. And
also on the time record, the in and out times are the ones that are, as soon as we come on, as soon as we go off. What we're requesting is less than that in this case.
No, I understand.
So we're only getting, the bottom line of that is the time that we're only requesting.
The problem is the timesheets. So their timesheets are coming off a computer program, right?
No, we do those ourselves.
They're doing them by hand? So why are they even putting that time on there?
They're all handwritten.
That makes no sense.
Are the time, is the 7:57 call-in time, that's logged off of
It's about we want the radio system to be accurate all the time. So that everything is correct.
That's
the problem.
That's not done by hand, that's off of the
But
radio.
we do our weekly time record that they have a sheet, they can write it in, we can put it on the computer, or we can put it in type-wise. So you have the time record, which shows us when we're going in and out, and the time that we're requesting, but we want them to match the radio log, so that if there's any inquiries, you can clearly see that the time record and the radio log are correct, and there's no inaccuracies. So that's why we have them on there that way. So we're only getting compensated for the time that we're requesting and having to approve.
I have a problem with not paying for on-duty time. I mean, you can be called, you can be dispatched at any point in time. And the other part of the problem I have with that is, if you're off the technical clock that you're scheduled on, and you've got a 30-minute drive home,
we don't do that until we get home. We don't go off the
right. radio time, do you charge a callback in after your?
No, we're reasonable with what we're doing here. We're not going off the clock at, say, 5 o'clock, and then driving home, and in 15 minutes we see an accident, and then we go back on the clock, which would require a 3-hour call, so that's not the case. We're going to go home if we see anything in between that, and that is what was put in the side letter, is that we will either get that overtime approved, or until someone gets there and takes over for you, or you will get approved that overtime for working out in 3 times a week. So we're being completely reasonable trying to get home. And if there's something that happens in between there, we can, if it's someone that's hired, well, we can change it. The guy can, the officer can either put it in or not put it in for overtime. If it's going to be something larger, he can stand by like an accident until another officer gets there and takes care of it from there. So they don't put in for every minute that they're out there. But if they're working it, they'll put in it. There's an approval process that says, okay, it's been approved, and then it will be put on the weekly time record. So at this point, all time is being paid, and we don't want to be overpaid. We just want to be paid for what we're requesting and has been approved.
You have
Correct. So, Steve, or Jeff, I want you to understand, my opinion is, you guys radio in, you should be paid. Time you get home, radio out. I don't care if it's past 10 hours. You need to just be paid for it. If we're going to do a nickel and dime our deputies around here, we need more deputies on the road than we got now.
Well, we don't
You're saying don't get in the car till 7 o'clock.
Huh?
You're saying don't get in the car till 7 o'clock.
No, I'm saying when they get in, they radio and they get paid. I don't care if it's overtime or not.
That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what
We
you're
can be
saying.
penny foolish and pound wise. We need to be taking care of these guys because they're the ones that are taking care of us while we're sleeping at night. You don't understand that.
But I guess, like I said, you got the attachment from Erica, read all the attachments she sent, and read the FOP contract when you got it, and you'll have all the facts to look at. I don't know how many of you have already read all of that. Have you all read all the attachments she sent?
But we need a board policy on it.
Oh, I agree, we need a policy, and I got one other question. So all the county employees are paid, are any of them rounded, or are they all paid for the time they write down, the time they go home? All
I
county
will say this
employees.
again, the Department of Labor has said timesheets have to be accurate. When timesheets come into my office, it shows the time in, it shows the time out, this many hours in a day for every employee in this county.
And you pay them exactly by that time. You don't.
That
pay
is
them
what
extra.
I'm required by law
I'm
to
just saying
do.
that's what you do.
No, I break the law.
No, what I'm saying is you pay
Yes,
every
I
county
pay them
employee the
exactly
same.
what the timesheet says.
Okay.
That's my whole point here, is I'm being asked to pay something outside of what the timesheet says.
So
That is not, I
I'm
find no comfort in that, I want no part of it.
just saying if they start at 10 till, everybody starts at 10 till, correct?
No, we have our girls locked, our girls come in at 2 till 8.
Okay.
You know, and we leave, the lights go off at, Tim flips the lights at 4 o'clock, we shut the door, we lock it, and we go home. Now, if there's something in the middle of the tax season, they stay 10 minutes over, no, I don't pay them, they'll take 10 minutes extra at lunch. They work their 35 hours a week, that's what they are required according to the union contract, and that is what they work. And that is what the way we pay.
So you pay 35 hours for your office then?
Well, one thing
You said they go 10 minutes over, do they get 10 minutes
I
extra?
just said the next day they may take a 10-minute extra long lunch or something, or, you know, my rules of comp may be up to an hour. Their time, they are paid for what is on the timesheet. They're
Okay.
never paid for a dime more, and they're never paid for a
For a
dime
dime
less.
less, okay.
It goes by the documentation on a timesheet.
Okay.
And you gotta understand, this is a different situation. This now, I
says on your timesheet, there's a place that they can request comp time. Is there a way that they could, instead of putting 11 hours down today, they could put their 10 hours down and request comp time, and then at some point in the future, say I want to relinquish my comp time? And therefore, that would allow Erica to pay them for the 40 hours and for the 10 hours for that day, and then at some point in the future, they could relinquish that time if they don't want paid for it, and that would solve the whole problem of Erica not paying exactly what's on the timesheet.
On the weekly time record, there's regular pay, there's overtime, there's comp time, there's personal time. That's all on. We're not requesting that time.
I understand what you're saying, but to get around Erica's problem, if you work, if it was 11 hours today, could you put your 10 hours down, right? You put that you want 1 hour of comp time, and then at some point in the future, say I want to relinquish my comp time.
We would only write down that extra hour if we were actually working it. If we were trying to get home, or we were going to request it, we wouldn't put that time down. So those times are going to be a little separate than what the guy came out.
But yet, you're putting down on your timesheet when you clock in, when you get in the car, and when you get out of the car at home. And that's where the problem is. I understand you don't want the extra time, but because it's on the timesheet, Erica has to pay you according to law. And that's why I'm saying, is there a way to request comp time for this 45 minutes today or something, and then relinquish that in the future?
We have some time to do that, and we can pay that out. If we put that on there, we're asking for compensation that we didn't actually want or defer, and then that's going to throw all the back. And we wouldn't want to have comp time that we didn't earn. We're just dragging home or coming home for whatever reason.
I have a recommendation. I think we've got 22 opinions here. I think law enforcement committee or whatever committee, Erica and the sheriff's department need to sit down and work this out so that the payroll records are accurate to come to Erica. If that means you add a column that says travel time, no compensation, then do it. But do something to make this legal. This 22 opinions is not going to solve this problem.
I agree with Levon, and currently Erica's doing it the way that she needs to do it. If there's going to be something different, it's going to have to come out of the law enforcement committee, and it's going to have to be, we need a legal opinion on it. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
In view of Erica's request, do we need to make some kind of a motion today to say that she continues to do as she's doing until?
No, I think she's okay. She wants to get the point on the table and get it discussed.
That's fine.
We need to take some action in the law enforcement committee. We'll look into it. Okay, let's move on. Item 11 is request of the 2021 tax levies. The budget committee, the finance committee, the fees and salaries is what it's made up of. We've got a list of levies that have been presented for next year, and we're requesting approval. These are the county levies for 2021.
Can we just explain this a little more about what this is about?
Every year, we have to levy the tax receipts, which we're estimating at $4,814,000 for next year. Corporate's going to get $1.9 million of it. IMRF $900,000. County Bridge Fund $320,700. County Highway $327,700. County Bridge $153,950. Mental Health $600,000. federal age matching, $179,000. County health, $305,500. Liability, $1. We're basically not doing anything in that account right now. Social Security, $315,000. Cooperative extension due by $73,333. Unemployment, $1. Workman's comp, $1. Because we are well paid into those funds, and so we don't have to levy any more for the funds, which then accounts for the total amount of $4.8 million.
The last was estimated was 342.
That's for the ambulance.
Yeah, that's ambulance. It's separate.
Okay, so do I have a motion for approval and a second?
I know.
Move on. I have a motion from, second from Gary Patterson. Any further question?
I'm just gonna make a comment, I compared that rate with the last 5 years, and that rate is below what the last 5-year rates have been. Our assessments have went up, but our rates actually went down.
The other
People look
question,
at their own tax bill and compare, which I did.
county health versus mental, I know what the mental health is, but that's not under the same umbrella, mental and county health.
No, they're two different umbrellas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, if no further questions, Jessica, would you call a roll call vote?
Earl Baker,
Aye.
Kitty Barr, Barbara Bennett,
Yes.
Levon Cheney,
Yes.
Candy Disler,
Yes.
Dennis Sternovich,
Yes.
Gary Gergany,
Yes.
Richard Hayden,
Yes.
Bob Jordan,
Yes.
Larry Lenz,
Yes.
Terry Metzger,
Yes.
Frank Mulholland,
Yes.
Bobby Orman,
Yes.
Gary Patterson,
Yes.
Robert Simpson,
Yes.
Jeff Slifer,
Yes.
David Switz,
Yes.
Don Tate,
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, motion carries. Next item of business on there is Alan Spencer, County Highway Engineer. Got approval to award a salt shed that we had a bid on last month.
Good morning. Good morning. Bruce said I have one item and it's an update. We had a bid opening for the salt storage shed that I described last month to you. We had one bidder, EAHC Structures, Effingham. Bid price of $35,950. The hire that includes the fabric building and structural members associated with that, structural engineer seal with that. It's construction, includes the construction of that. The highway department will be doing it with our own labors, the concrete walls and access. So, save some money. So I'm requesting approval to award to EAHC Structures. How much? $35,950. How big is this building? It is 50 foot wide by 84, I think, feet long. That's all. The fabric part of the building is, I believe, 14 feet clear, and then it sits on top of the concrete wall.
Is there any warranty on this?
Yes, there is, and I can't touch it. I didn't bring them. Well, maybe I do. I might not have to get one too. But yes, there is a warranty. Would you like me to look it up?
I'm just curious if you got it handy, if you don't have handy something.
What's the life expectancy of that being a salt shed?
Well, 30 years also.
The trusses that's in there are metal, correct?
Yes.
What's the life expectancy of it being a salt shed?
What's the life expectancy of life in here?
It's, the metal trusses in there,
It's a 30-year life expectancy.
for trusses included.
That's why I asked about the warranty, because, I guess 7 years, it's going to get pretty degraded.
Yeah, the trusses are not gonna be on the ground. The trusses are gonna be on.
The dust alone,
It's all dust in there, I mean.
It's structure